Welcome to the dark side of the rainbow. I'm your host, Robert Wallace, and this is a Gays Against Groomers production. Today, I had the pleasure of interviewing Elena Barbera. She's also known as the Based Mother online. You may have seen her podcast content and the other show that she did with her son, Sonny. And in this discussion, we talk about all things related to the trans agenda of grooming for children and all forms of sexual inappropriateness surrounding the matter at hand. So let's get on with the interview. All right, and welcome to the dark side of the rainbow. I'm Robert Wallace, and I'm here with Elena Barbera, also known as the Based Mother online. How you doing, Elena?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Robert.
Well, thanks for being had. We're going to have a fun little discussion about some of the videos that you've made, some of your activism, and your perspectives as a mother on the current set of issues. So you and your son, Sonny, did a podcast, and it was very successful. And you guys reviewed a lot of stories and a lot of reaction videos, that sort of thing. Did you see, was there anything in particular that you saw while you were doing that led you on to the path that you're on right now?
Getting into those videos with him, and they were reaction videos where he would show me something online and then he and I would talk about it and have this, mother-son conversation. And, what I started to see was parts of the culture that I didn't know existed, because, he was 18 when we started doing that, maybe even 17. And, I was seeing things that I wouldn't have otherwise been exposed to. Kids watch other stuff. And I started to see that there was a lot around, this transing of our youth. And, I was kind of paying attention to politics, and I was getting more and more and more into it and the culture, especially during the pandemic when we had a lot more time. I didn't spend time on Netflix. I spent time on the news and paying attention. And I started to see the mainstream media saying there were all these book bans and censorship going on. And, obviously I am all for free speech, and I am not, pro censorship. So during that time with Sonny, we started seeing clips from What is a Woman? And, seeing the culture, in the Supreme Court when she couldn't define what a woman was, when they were, during the Supreme Court hearings asked, what is a woman? And all of these things that went on. And I just got deeper and deeper and went down this rabbit hole. And man, the things that I found that are going on in our schools that are grooming them, not only to be trans, but to be sexually abused, right? Like starting in pre-K, just blew my mind.
Yeah, it's amazing what is coming to the surface for everyday people to see. We have an epidemic of the sexualizing of children, hyper-sexualizing of children. And that's just like surface level, because like what you were talking about, there's homework assignments and books that they're being given. So what do you think is the future for the next 20, 40 years of this current generation? What is this going to evolve into?
Okay, well, grooming, that's happening where we're talking about, children being born in the wrong body, where we're showing young children pornography, talking to them about overtly sexual content. That can go a lot of different ways. It could lead them to tethering themselves to the medical industrial complex through chemical and surgical sex change, which isn't actually ever really possible anyway. It can lead them to the point of being sexually abused by abusing each other. And also they start seeing at a very young age, seeing everybody as a sexual object. So they abuse each other. They're primed and ready to be abused by, creeps in their family or their neighborhood. And it is another road that happens when children are over-sexualized. It makes it's so much easier for a predator who wants to sex traffic them because they're primed and ready to go. So there's a lot of dark paths that children can end up taking that just leads to trauma. And we know that trauma leads to drug abuse and alcoholism and suicide attempts and poverty and even heart disease and cancer. Like, it's crazy when you look at the long-term studies of children who were sexually abused. how they end up, growing into adults who need so much work just to get back to like able to function in society.
Yeah.
So yeah, 20, 30, 40 years, we're going to have a massive population of children who are just whacked out of their minds and don't even know how to get through the day. And in public schools, we've got at any given time 50 million children. And we're setting them on all of those different paths every day, all 50 million of them. What is that going to look like? I don't even think we can really imagine how bad it's going to be.
Right. It's just going to like grow. What's the word I want to use? By bigger.
Explode.
Yeah.
just like destroy like a mushroom cloud. I mean, we can, and it sounds like I'm exaggerating, but I'm not. I mean, we're talking about 50 million kids, all of them being taught about, to focus on their sex and their genitals more than anything. That's what we're doing. It's bonkers.
Yeah, it is. And you mentioned something very interesting, that it's not even possible for these people to transition into the other gender. And I just was talking to Dr. Atom Heim recently, who made that same point, that how can the kids give consent, informed consent, if the thing that they're consenting to isn't even possible?
Yeah. It's criminal what's happening to these children. And what I think the last number I heard was, we're looking at the transgender medical industry is somewhere around $4 billion a year in revenue. That's what I heard. It could be a little higher by now. That's, it just, to me, it all just feels like a money grab. And we have states like Maine that are trying to make it illegal to sue a doctor for malpractice if they do this to a child. So that's a bill that's in play in Maine right now. So they know that the lawsuits are coming, and they're trying to set up the law to protect themselves from it already, because they know that what they're doing is unfounded in science and it's unethical, but it's making a lot of people a lot of money.
Yeah. And by the way, I remember that word that I was going after, exponential. Exponential development, because we're here in a couple of years, everybody's going to be comfy as a toaster, and then what do you transition to after that?
Yes, but people like you, organizations like Gays Against Groomers, you're out there like going into the state houses, protesting, sharing the knowledge, spreading the word. And that's what I want to do. I just want to, like, I'm the frying pan that wants to like hit everybody in America over the head with the knowledge and say, wake up. Wake up. This isn't just something that you saw on TV that's happening somewhere else. This is happening in your town.
Yeah. What do you think is the end goal? Who do you think is really behind this? Because it's not an organic thing that's just coming up. Like, society just needs to express its transism. It's a lot of influences.
It just seems to me, it sounds so conspiracy theorist-ish, even coming out of my mouth, but it seems like they're just trying to make pedophilia okay. Because we hear more and more about how now pedophiles don't like being called pedophiles because it has a negative connotation. So we should call them minor attracted persons. And, they're saying pedophilia is just another sexual orientation that we should accept. Sure, we should try to stop them from harming children. But this is the slope that we're on. First, we call them something nice, then we accept them, and so on. So I really think that that's where we're at. We even hear cases of where sometimes sexual abuse of a child, even as little as 7 or 8 years old, sometimes the child will consent to it. So it really wasn't abuse. These are the things that we're hearing floating around. And that's the end goal, I think. Why hasn't the Epstein list come out yet? Well, because it's not acceptable enough yet. But as soon as they think they can convince us to accept pedophilia, which, like, they're out of their minds, it's never happening. Then they'll all be off the hook for all the horrible things they've done. So is that a little too down the rabbit hole? I don't know. But
no, that's just, yeah, that's just starting at the surface, for me at least.
What's your rabbit hole? I want to know.
Oh, I've got a lot of rabbit holes, and there's a whole colony where they all converge underground, these rabbits. Yeah, because if you do follow the paper trail, if you pay attention to what's happening, and you get a big picture view, you'll understand when things like this kind of start, popping up out of nowhere, what purpose could it possibly serve? We've heard people at the World Economic Forum, actually, they've got a whole division that runs this, and their job is down the line to make sure like the whole DEI and this whole thing is implemented everywhere. And they're really trying to push for the equality of the LGBTQIA. So, they have their plot for a new world order. So there's a rabbit hole.
Yes, and it maybe it's also part of the depopulation scheme.
Yeah.
Because the more of us that are sterilized and just neutralized, and they kill our instincts to be fathers, to be mothers, and they teach us that being fathers and mothers is an outdated concept and you shouldn't be doing that. I mean, they achieve that. I still can't wrap my head around why they want to do it. Ultimately, what the why is, like, I'm just not warped enough. And if I ever do get to the why, I'm sure it'll be sickening.
Yeah. I think you were kind of getting at it when you were talking about the undermining basically of our moral fabric, because one of the things that I'm thinking about is the broad effect that all of these things in terms of cultural Marxism is having on the wussification of our country, in any number of ways you want to look at it. We are having our traditional values and our strengths undermined.
Yes.
For
Yeah, we
something.
absolutely are. I mean, the wussification of our country, the, feminization of our men, the masculinization of our women. They just want us all to just be this weird, neutral, unnatural thing. But you know what? Here's where I find hope, because at the end of it, I don't care how hard they try, you cannot change human nature. We are who we are, and we will be who we will be. We will maybe going through this freakish, weird phase right now, but human nature always wins out. And the desire to do what's natural and be free will always come out. I mean, maybe it'll take a little time, but I think we have to things have to get a little worse before Americans fully wake up. Unfortunately, more damage has to be done first, but we're going to be all right in the long run.
Yes, optimistically. I think we were talking before we started recording, and one of the things that we were kind of talking about is what got us into the fight in a certain way, what got us involved. And I think that it's having a very boomerangish effect for these people, because it's waking more people up than it's convincing in their direction. Something is afoot.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely. People are tired of it. People are tired of watching, mostly naked adults like shake their thing for children. Anybody who is even a little bit sane is saying absolutely not. And it can feel overwhelming, and they can make the people who want to protect children feel like they're in the minority, but they truly aren't. They're just all quiet. They're all just sitting there at home protecting their children. And this minority of people who want to sexualize kids, they're actually pretty small. They're just extremely loud. People need to remember that if once the rest of us all stand up at the same time, it's going to get weird for the other side, for the other team very fast. They're going to get very quiet very fast when they realize how outnumbered they are.
yeah, I'm hoping it doesn't come to civil war on our local streets, because everybody's been led down their paths through their media bubbles. But if we don't have our conversations about our country, the what we have in common, our philosophical beliefs on things, it used to be like, oh, you don't talk about religion and politics at the dinner table. But then when you think about God and country, when you think about what is your moral basis, and what about your patriotism, what about the country, and so since that's really what seems to be like under attack, it's like this is almost like it's a distraction, but it's an important thing that they got us on, because it really does mess up a person from the inside out to grow up in this environment if we don't talk about it.
can you even imagine growing up in this environment? And you hit on something with saying we were taught not to talk about religion and politics at the dinner table, at the board, in the boardroom, or anywhere. And you know what? Whoever came up with that one is a genius, because they planted a seed that ruined American society. Americans should be involved, and we should be having important, intelligent, informed conversations with each other about politics and about what's going on. And we should be talking about God and religion, even if we disagree. But what it's come to now is that we're so unpracticed in having those conversations that everyone is just so emotionally charged, and they can't even have the conversations anymore. And it did a great job of dividing us by having us all say, oh no, we won't talk about that because we don't want to offend anybody or ruffle any feathers. We wouldn't be ruffling feathers if we had the conversations all the time and we knew how to do them civilly, but we don't. And it was great. And now we are divided, and we know what happens: divided we fall. So man, that is, I always say, man, that was some evil genius stuff, whoever said that.
Yeah, we're not equipped for the conversations. And so what we get offensive and it gets emotionally charged, like what you're saying, because we can't defend ourselves. We don't know the right words. We don't know the facts we should know. The other thing is, we're actually a constitutional republic. We're not a
Yeah.
democracy. And that's the other thing, is we've got the subversion of speech there too. By saying that, we're one step closer to socialism. So it's like these issues are really being used, whether it's like the social justice issues around race or around the gays or the trans or whatever. It's being used in order to create a sort of division and a blind from what's actually happening.
Look at what's happened over the past, let's say, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years. We had the Me Too movement. Oh, that was all the rage. And then we had the Black Lives Matter movement, all the rage, both of them dead in the water, right? Then, we had, people fighting over vaccines and masks. Then, now we're fighting over trans things. Now we're fighting over, Palestine and Israel. And we're fighting over, with a protest in the street, people gluing themselves to the street and closing down bridges and tunnels. Like, it's just they just do the same thing over and over and over and just dress it up in a different banner, and people just buy into it. Like, how did we get to just be such emotional like creatures with no intellectual rigor, say, to look into both sides of an issue? Everyone's just out there screaming. And so what we have to do as people who want to make a difference is try to cut through that noise and not just be more noise. Try to, one by one, it's kind of like, as a Christian, like discipling, like you kind of just have to like have small conversations and plant little seeds here and there and hope that people will say, tell me more.
Yeah.
When you tell them something bad about, when all these things about what's going on with children and how dangerous these chemicals are that they're giving them for puberty blockers and how untested it all is, you want to tell them everything, but you just give them something to chew on, maybe they'll come back for more. And we have to find a way to do that, but do it fast also, because these children are being harmed at a rate that we can't keep up with.
Yeah. And, that's the one advantage that you have, that Gays Against Groomers has with social online video content media. We can immediately show people things that they would not believe. And I've told people things, they're like, oh, that's not happening. And then you show it to them and they're like, and I say, now, is that okay? Is that drag show okay? Is this, this cartoon pornography in the book okay? No, I wouldn't say this is okay. I wouldn't say this. I'm like, well, this is happening all over the place. And so in that way, we can really have like a really quick effect with the evidence. But yeah, in conversations, it's like you just got to drop little crumbs.
Right. Even though there's so much, I just want to like tie people to a chair and like put them in a movie theater and show them all of it.
Yeah. Yep, me too. I've got the documentaries lined up for that.
Yeah.
Throw popcorn in their mouth. So have you experienced a lot of pushback normally? And when people talk about the issues around the trans gay ideology, you get a lot of diverse opinions. What are some of the things that you've heard that make you think, I don't know how much hope there is, or I don't know how far gone people are if I have to explain this or that to them?
Some of the, so I was talking, what started my journey with making this film was, really just getting all the information and having it come at me and just being angry about it. And then last summer, I was sitting around the Sunday dinner table with about a dozen family members. And one of my family members has worked with children in defending children for, decades, probably 35 years. And when I started to tell her about what's going on in the schools and the pornography, and she said, that is not happening. And I said, okay, it is. And let me tell you more. And I started telling her and literally got pushback. And she said to me, I consider myself to be a well-informed person. And I'm telling you, like, I would have heard about this if it was happening, about the pornography in the schools and about the trans books in pre-K and all that. And I felt so frustrated that somebody who works with children was shutting me down. And another cousin of mine across the table started pulling things up on Google and being like, no, here it is in Oregon and Tennessee and Montana and Texas, and pulling actual news stories up about, validating what I was saying. So for me, that frustration of just an obstinance and a refusal to look at facts. And then, and she was also making some comments implying that I was bigoted against trans people and I'm like, listen, you're missing the whole boat here. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. I was in Manhattan all the time. I saw more what we called then transvestites than the average, American did, as a child, just because they were just around in New York. You go into the Village and that's where everybody hung out. So like, I never thought anything of it until they went after the kids. And that's when it became a problem in my life. So, that being called a bigot and being called a hater is frustrating. Having my Christianity thrown in my face is frustrating. Just the refusal to look at facts. But I had a little ray of light on Twitter last week. Somebody came at me, somebody with like all the flags in their bio, all the pastel flags and all the trans, whatever. And it really came at me, called me just a crazy bigot and all this, and said my film was full of lies. And I said, I can tell you haven't seen it. And they said, well, why would I ever watch that? You're nonsense. You don't even do research. I said, okay, look, do a little investigation, watch it. It's 36 minutes. And then get back to me and tell me if I didn't do any research. Mm-hmm. And that person did, and came back and said, I couldn't believe it, came back and said, I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. And I thought, wow, that was a really encouraging little exchange that I had there.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I've experienced so many breakthroughs like that. But by the way, let's talk about your film by name. It's American Groomer. American Groomers. The children are not okay. The kids are not okay. Could you correct me if I got that wrong?
Yeah, it's called American Groomer, and the tagline is "The kids are not all right."
Okay. And I've watched it a couple times, actually, even though I don't have the title fresh in my mind. And it was a really well-made documentary, and I encourage people to go watch it. What's the web address for that? AmericanGroomer.com?
No, it's AmericanGroomerFilm.com.
AmericanGroomerFilm.com.
Yes.
And it's a free documentary, sort of mini documentary on the subject.
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it just came to me like a ton of bricks that I had to make this film. And I started digging into the research, and I started making some calls and wanted to talk to some experts and people who were really fighting this on the front line. And that's how I got connected with Gays Against Groomers, because I reached out to Jamie Michelle, the president of the organization, and she and Sasha and Chris got on a Zoom with me. We met, and they said, yeah, let's do this. We'll be in your film. And I met them in New York at the New York fundraiser back in September. And we did some filming at the fundraiser, and then we interviewed them the next morning at our hotel. And they were such great contributors to the film with their knowledge, and like just the fight and how, and even since then, like Gays Against Groomers has grown like twice as large. And I'm so excited that, to have had them. But all this stuff, I did all the research. I had American Principles Project in the film and the Child and Parental Rights Campaign, and I did street interviews. And I say all this, what I'm about to say, because, I did this. I've never made a film before. I didn't have any funders. It was me and my cameraman and my editor, and he volunteered, and I paid for the whole film, all the travel, and did everything. And I say that not because I'm so great, but just to tell everybody, like, you can make a difference. You can take what little you have and get it done. Now, this does not look like, this is not an HBO quality film, but I've gotten a lot of really good feedback on it, and for somebody that has never made a film before, because I know the research is solid. I have great interviews with people. I just figured it out, because once I really learned the truth, I was like, nothing is more important than getting this out there and protecting these 50 million kids that are in schools. And not that it's not happening in private schools, but it is just, I say 50 million to just focus on the public.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully everybody will go to americangroomerfilm.com and watch that post haste. It's an amazing film. And yes, Jamie and Sasha and Chris were in that, and they did a great job also. So yeah, back to what you were saying, I can testify the power of a documentary is so important for my spouse, for instance. A lot of things we've been going through. I'm like, I've been telling you about this forever. We watch a documentary. It's like, well, why couldn't he have just shown this to me to begin with? I said, because we were in the middle of it happening. The
Right.
documentary is after, but you want to get up over on this information so that you can interpret the moment correctly.
Yeah, and it could have been 10 hours long with the amount of information I came across, but the things I learned are stomach churning. Like in 39 states here in America, it is legal to show children pornography in schools and libraries, no matter how bad the pornography, no matter how young the child. If you show that same stuff to a child on the other side of the threshold, you will leave in handcuffs. So it's harmful to children on one side of the threshold, but in schools it's okay. How did those laws get passed? I talk a little bit about that in the film and how we came to that. And there is really no solid explanation for it. And certain states like New Jersey don't have that law in place, but they're fighting to get it put in place because they want to protect a teacher's right to show pornography to little kids. What's going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why are with all the problems we have in this country, that's what our legislatures are focusing on, putting pornography in front of children. It's coming around right from the White House. It's bonkers. I mean, I can't say enough what a big fight this is. I'm so glad you guys are in it, because you're out there fighting. And I'm now getting involved with an organization called Take Back the Classroom. So I'm going to be getting more active in addition to just being somebody that's just trying to give people the facts.
Do you think we need to spend more time as individuals, as parents, homeschooling our kids, or an equal amount of time, or most of our time reforming the public school system?
I have a little bit of an extreme opinion on this. I think we should yank our children from these institutions and let them crumble to the ground and then rebuild them, because they're so corrupt. We have the American Library Association in most of our libraries. They are actively, very and proudly pushing this agenda on our children. We have the teachers unions also actively and proudly pushing the agenda. Again, it's coming from city councils in a lot of cities, school boards, again, right down from the White House. The Human Rights Campaign has materials in schools in all 50 states. They've got lists and lists of books about how to be transgender for pre-K up through 12. So it's so insidious that you can't send your kid there 8 hours a day and then come home and spend an hour with your kid at dinner and think that you can undo the damage that was done in 8. You can't. We got to get the kids out, let it fall apart, and then rebuild it if we want it at that point. But homeschooling,
Yeah.
actually, the more I learn about it, those kids are thriving. They're doing well. It takes 2 to 3 hours a day to homeschool, and then you just get to live your life with your kid. If you're blessed enough to be able to, make the sacrifices to afford to do that. I didn't do that. My son is 20 now, but if we were in that situation, that's what I'd be doing.
Yeah, Absolutely. Yep. Nowadays it's too corrupted, and they're teaching they won't even let the teachers graduate unless they've kind of like sworn their oath to the social justice
Yeah.
warrior mentality. And then we have all the controversy around all the politicians who somehow inexplicably find their way into offices where no one in the town seems to like them. And then they happen to be the one who wants to push the whatever initiative, the smart city initiative or the globalist plot all the way down. And you got the doctors and everybody saying, hey, we have to affirm, and everybody's gender. So it's kind of like, everybody's been infiltrated so many levels up above, even what we're dealing with. And we got to get back to like putting our focus on like, why is this happening? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? And we touched on that. So, but we got to get involved, right? We got to get involved in whatever way, like you're doing your activism, you're spreading the word out here. Everybody's got something they can do. And if we don't all partake, we're going to be like a silent majority of people who remain silent during the ugliest of times.
Yeah. And, like people don't realize they can pick different ways to get involved. Like, okay, you can invite 10 other parents over to come over to your house and watch my film. Go listen to, share Gays Against Groomers podcasts. Go to a Gays Against Groomers event and or support them. Find an organization like Take Back the Classroom and become their volunteer army of parents who are, getting porn taken out, actively getting the porn taken out of schools. You could probably add to that list. Like there's small and bigger ways. Run for school board, run for a city council seat. Those are more time investments, but it's very simple to just get started.
Mm-hmm.
What
Yeah.
would you add? Would you add anything to that
No,
off the cuff list that I just threw out there?
only thing I would add is anything you can imagine that you think you could bring to the table, something that's not being done, something that, oh, I don't want to do that because, nobody's doing it that way. Maybe you need to start doing it that way. I know I myself got into this whole thing just because of seeing it happening. It was like automatic magnetic effect for me that if this is happening, I have like a de facto responsibility to be on it, but there's no way it's happening. And it is happening. And so it kind of cleared my schedule for me and wrote the script for me and guided what needed to be done just because it's like, in what universe are we not doing something about this? I can't believe it's happening. So, and I know that's how you got activated. You just saw it was like a legitimate issue and then got to do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. And, tonight I'm sitting having a friendly conversation with you and smiling, but, sometimes I get like flipping table mad. Like, how is it that we are in a fight to just protect children's innocence? Like, this isn't normal. This is insanity. This is, where like I get all, Jesus, and I'm like, are we this is the battle of good versus evil. Not everybody resonates with that message, but like that's how, like that's where I'm at, because it can't be anything but just pure evil to take away kids' innocence and want to hurt them. I don't understand. And yeah, I get crazy when I
Now I do
really
too.
start to think about it.
I do too. I think it comes down to like if you don't have anything to live for, if you don't have something bigger than your identity, than your appearances, then you're going to keep falling back on, these popular movements or, social justice causes where you can be a victim, where you can be the hero and the victim, where you can fight back and be the underdog who is eventually supported by the government who was supposed to be the one keeping you down or something. I don't know. It gets convoluted at the end, so we don't ask questions. But
Sorry to laugh, but you're so right. It's so absurd that it is comical, and it's good to laugh about it, even though it's really harmful.
yeah, it's an unfortunate world of contradictions that we're in right now. And so something you were touching on earlier, you know, we see that the acceptance of the LGBTQIA and all of its various forms is leading generally towards a normalization and an acceptance of the MAPs, the minor attracted people, aka the pedophiles. So, can you draw some more correlations between how the grooming activity that's happening in schools is ultimately leading to an acceptance of that?
Sure. So when you start telling young children about explicit sex acts, and you start telling them that who they're sexually attracted to and their self pleasure is the most important thing, and STDs are no big deal. And these are the things that I'm pulling from, the most common books that are controversial. When you start saying that you should be talking about sex with everybody, that you should be masturbating in front of your boyfriend, even if you're in junior high or high school, because it's sexy, what you're doing is you're just taking, things that are meant for adults and you're making them for children. So you're breaking down barriers. And this is what grooming does. It breaks down barriers. And that way, when the creepy uncle comes along, or the creepy neighbor, or the sex trafficker, and they start, they don't have to start at square one with teaching an innocent child about sex. They can, they're coming in at, like level 5 already, like, oh man, this kid's primed. And they only have to just very quickly develop a trust with the child, and then get the kid to start keeping secrets, and build that wall between the kid and their parents goes up much faster, and they're primed and ready to have sex with the adult. So that, what it does is it just makes that path so much easier for pedophiles. And so when we're doing that to kids in schools, and parents think that they're dropping their kid off to learn about, science and math and reading, but yet here they are having conversations about the teacher's sex life, what and then does that, am I making sense? Am I
Mm-hmm,
drawing
mm-hmm.
that correlation there? Yeah, so that kids are ready, they're just primed and ready to go when a pedophile wants to have sex with them.
Exactly. You sow
And
the
then
seed.
online,
What's that?
I'm sorry, and then you add to it, then they come home and they go online and they're seeing this stuff online, so it's just reinforcing what they're being taught in school.
And it seems like if I'm looking kind of like at a gradient, I remember about 8 years ago or so, I was over at one of my friend's house, and his, I don't know, 6-year-old little sister he left the room, and she came into the room and she started singing "Loosen Up My Buttons, Baby." Remember that song? Loosen up my buttons, baby. Okay. So
Yeah, when
she's
you sing
doing,
it now, yeah.
yeah, she's doing that. She's starting to literally undo in front of me. And I was like, I said, stop, you got to go. And I told my friend, I said, what's going on? Just the TV raising her. And
Yeah.
the reason why I bring that up is because that was 6, 7 years ago. And the gay thing, the trans thing wasn't a major issue then. And so now you go from kids just being generally sexualized by MTV or whatever to now they're being gay sexualized. They're sexualized, and you add the gay trans component. And then that seems like one step further toward the ultimate degradation of the pedophilia ready map accepted,
Hmm.
uh, accepting child even.
Right, because they're telling kids to have sex with everybody. So even a straight child is now being convinced to have sex with now anybody. A man, a woman, a man who thinks he's a woman who thinks she's a man, a furry, like just have sex with everybody because everybody deserves your love and affection. And that's traumatizing. It's as bad for, like, I have heard, personal stories from gay friends who had straight sex at one point, and they were like, it was really gross. Like, it wasn't for me. And but they were adults, they chose it, they were trying, different things. But for children to be convinced of doing all this stuff that they're not inclined to do, or they're not ready to do, is just trauma.
Yeah. And you can't unsee the thing either.
Yeah.
It's like, once the idea is shown in the head, the person just is going to crank over and over what's already in their head in order to understand things. So if you can put those ideas, it could be noon the next day, it could be 3 a.m. the next day, and it's now part of their thought process.
Right. I
And
can have sex with anybody. And then the next level is of any age.
mhm,
So it doesn't matter that I'm 12 and he's 60.
right. He
He just wants
identifies as
me.
a 13-year-old daddy,
Yeah.
you know?
This is what this is. I mean, it's just insanity. So we're going to get to a point where I think parents are just going to be pulling their kids out of the schools until they fix this. But we also have to pull our kids off the internet. I mean, there's just so much poison in our lives. We have to pull ourselves off the internet as parents. You know,
Yeah.
phone down. Everybody, when you walk in the house, everybody put the phone, put the phone on the wall. Put a little box on the wall, just like the old days. The phone is on the wall. You walk over to the wall and pick it up when it rings. I don't know what the answer is, but we're in a very fast downward spiral.
I think everybody needs to find their nearest Amish community and go and knock on their door and ask to be adopted. Uh, yeah, the technological spiral is a real thing, and it's not being managed in a very wholesome direction. So, you're right. Not only are they going to see it in schools now, they're going to see it in their TV shows and movies, but they're going to see it on just the general internet. And some teachers are actually using that as a justification for talking about this now, because they're saying, there's this one video in particular I saw, this woman's like, your parents aren't even watching your kids and you're letting the internet raise them. And so they're bringing me these questions. So this is more of a reflection on you as parents, or on where the world is, than it says about me as the teacher. And
Yeah,
there's,
that's
I
what I'm
mean,
hearing too. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, there's some truth to that, but the solution to the problem isn't to add gasoline onto the fire. Like, okay, let's just help you cultivate all of these thoughts that you've been given about, various sexualizations, and, codify them so you know how to use them appropriately. I don't know. It can't be, you don't want to like support that stream of thinking. You also don't want people to walk away with odd ways of thinking, but you definitely don't want to graduate them through a school of, mastery on
Yeah.
these bits and pieces.
What you said is key. What he will teach you how to use them appropriately. Kids don't know anything. Their brains aren't developed. You can show them every guidebook and every rule for everything, how to be safe, and they don't use them. They don't, I mean, kids, they think about how you drove when you were 17. We don't know anything, and they're very, very big on taking risks and thinking that bad things won't happen to them. And, here we are teaching kids, like they're in this book here. Let's talk about it. This is one of the more famous ones. There's a whole section on anal masturbation, and other ones on kink, and, getting tied up and dangled from the ceiling
Wow.
kind of sex. like in middle school. Now, when middle school starts at age 11, like, did you need to hear any of that stuff in middle school at any point ever?
I mean, I'm
And
almost 40, and I see and read so much from these books that have never even crossed. And I mean, I'm not sheltered. Like, I don't have virgin ears. It's not like I don't know stuff, but it is literally like that far. It's like a whole nother, like you were saying, like their kinks, they are their fetishes, they are these like, and I've gotten this far without knowing about any of that. And you're talking about knowing about that at a young age, when you're already experimenting or thinking about that.
Yep.
Someone call the police.
Right. And then you ask your 25-year-old neighbor about it. And then the neighbor says, "Oh, come on over, I'll show you." Like this is, we used to teach our children, if anybody talks about this with you, you let me know, because they're a sicko and they shouldn't be talking about it with you. That means you're in danger, and don't let them tell you not to tell me, because that's a red flag. That's what we taught kids. Now we're teaching kids in school. Oh, you have a secret? Oh, you want me to call you by a different name? And we'll just, you'll be something completely different, and you want to talk to me about who you're sexually attracted to, that's fine. You can tell me in secret and we won't tell your parents. And they're saying that's virtuous.
Mm-hmm.
That's how far we've come, so fast. And if you look at other countries around the world, they're all starting to push back on it. England just blocked nationally puberty blockers and gender assignment surgery on kids. And right, yay,
Yeah.
England. And you guys are helping to get that pushed in states all across the country too. So the rest of the world is may have swayed a little bit, but most of the world really never even came down this nutty path that we're on. They got to be looking at us going, what the hell are they doing in America? And this is why, correct me if I'm wrong, it was either Guyana or I think it was Uganda, where they put a law in place recently that's really extreme, where you can get the death penalty for being gay. And now that's something we would never do here. That's insane. That's like, to us, that's just, we can't even wrap our head around that kind of cruelty. But what it is, it's the rest of the world is looking at us and saying, we're going on offense. They're going as far on offense as they can, because they're like, you're not coming for our kids. We'll kill you first. And I hate that they have to go that far, but that's where it is. So really, it's an us problem. And we're going to have to outgrow it, because the rest of the world is not on board.
Yeah. And you can't blame them. I mean, they're like, it's the great white dragon of the West, or what, whatever the prophecy of America is for them and their culture. And then you see this spilling over. I've been to 60 countries, and one of the ironically saddest things that I've seen is in the nightlife culture, just like in the radio culture. Almost every one of these countries is playing the top 40 from the US. And when you look at what's in the lyrics, and and how every song is just like hopeless, or it's about lust or promiscuity or hatred or vengefulness or hoochie mama, and you look at the culture that is sitting there playing at this humble little man in Thailand or in Peru or whatever, who's come out of a culture that still managed to maintain some of their purity or their wholesomeness, and you're watching America's content come directly in and start corrupting and tainting, and now they're little rappers popping up over there, and they're emulating what's happening over here. And it's just like, even from that perspective, I'm like, this content isn't good for Americans. And it's doubly bad for these people who are like, have no notion of, and so, what are people who are against this in other places supposed to think about a part of the world where it seems that it's being embraced, and that they only have that image because the media is run by individuals who, are charged with propagating, supporting, and uplifting this message. So, the vast majority of us who are standing against it, we're not making it to their headlines or their newspapers over there.
I can't tell you how many times I've gotten a DM or a comment that said, "Oh, I am so glad to know that America still has some people like you." I'm like, trust me, there's more of us. Because they really, you are, and that just proves your point. All they see is insanity. It's Ringling Brothers over here to them.
Yeah, it is. And, we turn it down, and we're surrounded by it. We're a little bit more used to like navigating to where we want to go. But, it's like the highest, production value is put in Hollywood, music and Hollywood movies and TV shows and things like that. And so when the rest of the world gets it, they're like, state of the art quality, sounds, technology. And that's, the Trojan horse where all of the brain worms are, going to be downloaded from. So, brain worms. There was this joke somebody was making a while back about that.
Well, well, I don't
call
know
it what you want,
but it actually makes perfect sense. Yeah.
Yeah, And so anyway, I feel bad for the rest of the world. I understand why they feel the way they do, but we're not going to help that through our tacit silence. Our silence is taken as a tacit agreement that all is well. It's not bad enough for me to say anything. I'll go along to get along. So at the very least, say something.
I don't know how we got here from a generational standpoint. So I'm Gen X, and we were all like, like, no, we're not taking anybody's crap and all this. And now all my Gen X friends are like, yeah, I'm just a few years from retirement. I don't want to rock the boat. Like, or, oh, I got my third one's in college. I'm almost through. I can't afford to lose the job, or, you know, upset the apple cart in the mom group, or this or that. I'm like, what happened to us? We were tough. We were the twisted sister, we're not going to take it generation, and now we sure are taking it.
I mean,
And
that's
that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to, like, wound people's pride a little bit. Be like, I remember when you were tough. Come on,
yeah,
come back.
yeah. I mean, you got to spar them on somehow. It is so sad that we do not want to take any personal risk or expense to speak up for the truth. I think that really goes back to the whole, like, you got to have faith in something. Come on, because otherwise, why would you stand up to be persecuted for a truth whose, true hero, or, true advocate, is just some sort of like an imagination? Like, if you don't believe that it matters, that there's a reward ultimately, it's no secret we're going to die one day. It's like, what do you think you're carrying with you? The contents of, like, your soul, I don't know where you think you're going to go, but, protecting your job and these sorts of things at a time like this, I mean, this is not even a small thing, just to let pass. And it's also not such a trivial thing that I think people need to worry about being, like, left high and dry because, they went down some crazy route. It's pretty clear.
It is pretty clear. And pick a battle. Like, if this isn't for you, like,
Yeah.
we have a few battles in this country that are really changing, dramatically about to change our way of life. And if we don't win all of them, it's not just this, it's the immigration front, it's the free speech, it's the 2A. We have so much going on. Like, pick one of them, get involved. I mean, we always grew up hearing these stories of our founding fathers who sacrificed so much for what for freedoms, so that we could have these basic rights to live in unencumbered by the government and raise our families the way we want. And again, we got really comfortable. We went on autopilot. Things were easy. Well, they're not anymore, and we have to get uncomfortable and be the generation that stands up and saves this country. For us, it's saving the children. That's our battle.
Yeah, it's so true. This is not everybody's cup of tea, but there's a places for everybody. And so if you're sitting there listening and you're thinking to yourself, whatever little I'm going to do won't matter, won't be noticed, it won't be accepted or appreciated. I mean, those are the lies of a dark place in yourself, because as soon as you actually show up and you start to put your voice to your beliefs, people are going to rally around you and they're going to appreciate you. You're going to be inspiring people in unusual ways around every corner. That's going to show you that just showing up is half the battle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And get in the fight, man. Like, we gave a whole list of ways that are easy and hard. Beginner level right up to expert level. Get in there, though. We need everybody to wake up and put down their phones and get uncomfortable. Get out of the sweatpants. Let's go.
Yeah. And people are going to pull you up to assist them with stuff just because you showed up.
Yes.
You think that there's a lot of voices. Well, there's not as many consistent voices as you might think, just watching the media. So, well, Elena, one more time, give us your web address and how people can follow you.
All right. So please go to americangroomerfilm.com. I made the film free. It's only 36 minutes. It's jam-packed. It's pretty fast. So, and then on that website, American Groomer Film, you can find my social media links, where I mostly am known as the based mother. And if you have any questions, you can contact me anywhere, but I'm pretty easy to reach because I'm ready to team up.
Awesome. And for anybody who has any questions about Gays Against Groomers, you can go to gaysagainstgroomers.com. You can find us on X, on Insta. If you want to sponsor the program or donate, go to gaysagainstgroomers.com. My name is Robert, and you can email me if you have any questions, comments, or concerns at robert@gaysagainstgroomers.com. Thanks again, Elena.
Thank you so much. What a fun conversation. It's so great being here.
Yes, you're an amazing person to talk to. So thanks again for joining us.
Thanks.